Alright, so hello all you crazy people out there, this is DragoniteSpam, and welcome back to Tower Defense Games. So a few months ago, I think it was in May that I last posted one of these, I was working on just making a Tower Defense game in Scratch in GameMaker, and kind of recording that whole project, and I kind of forgot about it, and I don't really know why, other than that I can say I forgot about it, and I want to finish that because that was a fun project, and I like Tower Defense games. First, there are a few very questionable design decisions I made about this when I started. You can see a couple of them on the screen here. For one, you can place towers on top of each other or on the path or whatever, and you really shouldn't be able to do that. For another, well, I guess that's not really so much of a questionable design decision as it is just not getting around to dealing with that. Another is the bullets have a habit of chasing the target enemy down, which really looks pretty weird. So I'm going to be removing their ability to do that also, and that I definitely shouldn't have done in the first place, so sorry for anyone who watched the first 4 videos and saw me and had to put up with me doing that. Anyway, this over here is the code that will make the bullet chase its target down. I'm just going to comment it out later in case I want to re-add it for like a homing missile or something later on. And this I had commented out, and I don't really know why, but it's going to shoot a bullet at the target enemy. And it's going to be shooting a lot faster than it was before, so it shouldn't have to worry about like missing the target, which I think was the reason that I decided to make the bullets chase the enemies down. Anyway, that does have a potential problem, which I will be getting into in a minute. First, let's see. I'm just gonna stick 2 of these in this first corner over here, this first little section, and that looks a lot better. Nothing's chasing anything down, and the bullets are moving fast enough to actually catch the enemy and not like miss because they take so long to get there that the enemies just move. Well, in most cases anyway. This is not really what's supposed to be happening. Anyway, let's see. The potential problem that I had in mind is it's possible for the bullets to be moving at a speed where they kind of jump over their target, and that really shouldn't happen. I might get back to that problem later because it could be a pain to fix right now, and I want to have some sort of sense of progress within this video. Anyway, the easy solution would probably be to like double the frame rate to 60 frames per second and like half the speed of everything else so that it's more precise, but that's kind of a not really a solution as much as just avoiding the problem until later on. I am going to bump this up to 60 though, because people tend to like that. See, what was the other thing I wanted to do? I should make sure, this is probably going to make everything just run at double speed, which isn't really a good thing, so I'm going to slow everything else down. GameMaker's like step event, the actual game speed and the frame rate are kind of coupled together, and it's hard to separate them, which is kind of annoying. Anyway, okay, I did do that the last time. Instead of just saying wait 30 steps before you shoot again, I said wait for 4 seconds to pass. Alright, enough of that. Might want to slow these down a little bit, the bullets and the enemies movement. Just so, let's see, where do I go and spawn these enemies? There we go, spawn enemy. And the speed that they move along the path is going to be 4 pixels per step instead of 8. And that should move a bit smoother, and the actual game should kind of happen at the same speed as it was before. Okay, that does look, I think it looks a little smoother, and it's definitely not going like haywire or anything, which is good. So I can get out of there, I can get out of there, and that is one problem taken care of. The other, with regards to the placement of the towers, I do want to set it up so the first time you click, you're going to still create the tower, but it's going to follow the mouse around until you click again, so you get a little more time to decide where you're going to place it. So I'm going to add another true-false variable to tower create, which is activated, and it's going to start out as false. And let's see, in its step event, I'm going to extend this window a little bit because there's not a lot of space in it. If activated is true, then you're going to do all this, and let's indent that because I'm very obsessive about my indentation. And otherwise, if you're not activated, if you're still following the mouse cursor around, I'm going to do this, and, well, you're going to follow the mouse cursor around. Okay, so that is not completely going to be doing what I want to be doing. First, I am clicking and I am moving the tower around, which is what I was looking for. But nothing happens when I click again. And to do that, let's see. In controllers create event, I'm going to add another variable, following. And it's going to start out as no one. And this is going to represent the tower, if any, that is currently attached to the mouse cursor. So there are now a couple different things that the game can do when you click a tower, and I'm going to go and account for them here. So if following is no one, so this really should be double equals. GameMaker doesn't care whether you use single equals or double equals in Boolean condition checkings, but it's a good idea to do double equals because pretty much every other language on the planet does that, and it's a good habit to get into. For those of you who don't know, if in pretty much any other language, if you were to say just if following single equals no one, the computer would take that as assign the value of no one to following instead of evaluating whether they're true or false, and it would be a huge pain in the neck to debug. But that is a subject for another day. Anyway, otherwise, if there is a tower following the mouse cursor when you click, I should assign the instance that was just created to the following variable over here so that the controller object is updated on what's going on in the rest of the game. Anyway, if you click while something is attached to your mouse cursor, simply following the tower is going to be activated. So I'm going to say activated equals true, and following variable is going to be not false, but reset to no one. You could use false if you wanted to, because instance IDs are just non-zero numbers, but using the no one special value is a more clear way of showing that the variable is supposed to hold an object instead of just any old number. Anyway, so I'm going to run this, and when I click again, I'm going to be dragging this around, and then I'm going to stick it down there, and that's good. So I can do that there again, and well, these guys are getting very close to getting through, and I don't like that, but that doesn't matter. I'm not trying to win the game, at least not right now when there's so many other things that need to be done. Anyway, a little bit of added functionality that might be nice, but isn't really necessary for anything, is say if you're deciding where you want to place one of these towers and you decide that you don't want to have it at all, it would be nice if there's a way to cancel it and take care of that. I would like to avoid using the global left press, key press events. I would like to put as much of that in the step event as I can, but it's a lot clearer what I'm doing when I use these specific events. I'm going to choose, how about the, I guess, backspace key, for lack of better things to use. And if there is a tower that you haven't placed down yet, just this is just going to say if, no, not if, with the tower that you're still deciding where you want to place, you're just going to get rid of it. There's one last problem with this, and that is that whether or not you actually place it, the game will deduct oh my god, the cost from the amount of money you have. So instead of putting it here where you actually create the tower, I'm going to deduct the cost from your money when you actually stick it down somewhere. For this case, you won't ever have to worry about not having enough money and going into negative by placing a tower, because this condition will only ever happen if you have enough money anyway. So you won't ever have to worry about going into negative money or anything like that, because that would be pretty annoying. Now let's see. I'm going to do this. No currency has been deducted. I stick it down, and it has. Once again, do this, and I can't click right now, and I can, and alright, so that system works. The one last thing that I want to do before I end this video would be making sure you can't place towers down on top of each other. Also, I do want to name these code fragments, because that is something I have not gotten in the habit of doing, and I really should, especially when I'm doing tutorial videos, but even when I'm not, it's a good idea. But if you put 3 forward slashes in the front, in the top of a code snippet, you will see over here in the actions list, you will get a preview of what this does. So in this case, it's something like this. You're canceling the tower instead of putting it down, and you can see it in the actions list, you can see what it does. If you'll excuse me a minute, I'm going to go do this with everything else in the game, so I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I've labeled every single one of my code snippets and realized something else that I also want to do before this video is over. I didn't start to do this until like 2 weeks ago, which is very sad considering how much I've been using GameMaker Studio recently, but you do have a couple different draw events here, and there is now a draw GUI, draw GUI. It sounds like that should be how this word is pronounced, GUI, but apparently everybody pronounces it that way anyway, so I guess I'll go with draw GUI. The HUD, anything related to the HUD really should be placed in the draw GUI event for a couple of reasons. For one, this ignores views and stuff, so you don't ever have to worry about like view, XView or anything anymore if you're using this event. If you're using 3D, you don't have to do any of the work with like resetting the graphics projection so that you can actually just draw on the screen again. This event also makes it very easy to let the game HUD use different resolution than the rest of the game, which I personally don't have much use for, but some other people might. Anyway, that's the draw GUI event. I will probably make a separate video on that later. Now, as I was saying with the towers, in left click, did I say that? Yeah, left pressed. I tried to say click and press at the same time, and it came out very badly. First, I'm going to make sure that these can't be placed on top of each other. I thought about, before I started recording this, having every tower snap to a grid, and decided against that because I never really liked being restricted to grids in tower defense games. It wouldn't take too long to implement, so I can do that in the future if anybody wants to, but regardless, I don't want to do this, but I think the easiest way to make sure towers can't be placed on top of each other would actually be to move this over to, move this out of the controller's mouse click event and into the actual tower's mouse click event. And this I can just say left press instead of global left press because we're only interested in having the towers react if you're actually clicking on them. In this case, dragging it around the room to place it down. In other cases, things like selecting them so you can see their stats and stuff, which I'll probably get into soon. I think I said that the last time too, and I haven't done that yet, but I do want to get into that soon. Anyway, I'm going to unindent that. I'm going to say if activated equals false. Again, with a double equals, it equals false. There we go. Then we only want this to happen, because if it's already been placed down, there's no point in really placing it down again. And for later on, I'll follow this in later on, but if a tower's already been placed, when you click on it, you can like see its stats and stuff. I'll implement that later. Anyway, first setting activated to true. I now have to reference the controller following and tell it to equal no one, because we're no longer in that object and can't reference its variables directly. And the same thing for currency and cost. And why exactly did I like attach the cost variable to the controller? Because it would be rather logical for different towers to have different costs. Anyway, I'll deal with that later when I get around to making differences in type for these different towers. Controller.currency, I don't even know what that spelled, or that, and controller.cost. And to actually make sure this can't be placed on top of something else, if I don't want that symbol, not place meeting x, y, and another tower object. This isn't going to work because it's going to detect itself, isn't it? Very conveniently, there are a couple of different collision functions. I think this is the most specific collision point. Place meeting and things like that are more general, but x, y object is going to be tower. Precise is going to be false because these are all boxes and there's no point making the game work harder to detect precise collisions. And not me is going to be true because it's obviously always going to be colliding with itself at its own position, and that is not really going to be useful information to know. Anyway, this should work. I'm like 90% sure this should work. I obviously have not tested this before this video, but I'm going to click that, place it down. It's still going to be able to be placed on the track because I have not I haven't accounted for the track yet, but okay, so it is not letting me place any other tower around directly on top of itself. It is letting me get close because, let's see, like I'm slightly off, but because the mouse cursor isn't quite over the other tower, I can place one there, and I don't like that. Also, as soon as I'm placing one tower, it's creating another one, and I think I know why it's doing that. Global left press. I want to say left pressed is processed before global left pressed, so the tower puts itself down, and then it resets the following variable, and then in the same step of the game, the controller detects the global left pressed event, and it executes this even though that wasn't true at the beginning of the step. Dealing with event order really isn't fun. Alright, the easiest way to take care of that would be to use left released instead of left pressed, because obviously the release event is going to happen after the press event. Again, that's not a very good solution at all, but for the time being it's going to work. What did I just do? Oh yeah, I should close out of that first. And then I'm going to move this over to left release. To whoever's watching this, if you have a solution that's pretty good, let me know, and I'll try to remember to get around to it. Later on, probably towards the end when I'm polishing this up, I'll go through all of my code, like every line of code in the game, and see what I can fix up to make better, cleaner, and everything. But for now, let's see, I'm going to click this. Oh god, now it's just placing it immediately. Actually, this kind of makes sense. Alright, I actually like this. This was not what I had in mind, but I like this. You click down, and the tower is following the mouse cursor around, and you release the button, and it places it. I actually like that. And you can still hit, what did I say, backspace, and it'll go away. Oh, when you hit backspace, I thought I did this, but apparently not. Following needs to get reset to no one, so that the game knows that it can place something else. Following equals no one. There we go. Alright, trying this again. So I'm clicking down, release, place, clicking down. I place that one there. A third time, I hit backspace, it's gone, and I can keep sticking stuff down because all the proper variables get reset when they need to. Okay, great. Now, this isn't very important, but if you want to give the towers a little bit of space between themselves, if you want to make sure that, like, they can't be placed directly on top of each other, but they can be placed pretty close. One way to take care of that would be to make a third sprite. Actually, I'm not going to create a new sprite so much as I'm going to copy the towers are blue. I'm going to duplicate this and make it larger. So let's scale it up by stretch. Make it, say, 64 by 64 instead of 32 by 32. And this doesn't actually matter because you won't actually be seeing this sprite, but I'm going to make it a lighter shade of blue so I can tell them apart when working on the game. Reset the origin. Why did I decide to go and use such bad names for these sprites? Alright, that's another thing that I didn't do very well earlier, isn't it? But this is going to be tower mask. Did I spell that right? I spelled that right. And while I'm at it, I'm going to call this... Alright, for now I'm going to say what the sprite is and what like variation of it is. Sooner or later I'm going to have to get around to making better graphics for these different entities in the game, but good-looking graphics are very low importance at the beginning of a game's development, so I'm going to set the tower's mask to this blue sprite, which is larger. Excuse me a minute, real life. Alright, I'm back. And I do hope I didn't screw up my microphone. What was I saying? Okay, so the tower's collision mask is going to be this bigger sprite, so you're going to see on the screen the blue square, but what it's going to be using for collision detection is going to be the larger light blue square, which happens to be the same color as the background. And I did not... What? Why? Alright, that might be an error in GameMaker because the enemies still have a sprite index. Enemy, draw, self. Give me a minute. That should not be happening because I did not do anything to the enemies. If I clean the compiler cache, will that work? I know sometimes you do get weird errors if you rename resources, which is pretty much the only thing I did to the enemies. Okay, I'm not sure what was going on there. Um, Pretty much the only thing I did was literally going into the enemies, setting the sprite to no sprite, and then resetting it to enemy red. It would seem that something got screwed up when I renamed the sprites, which should not be the case. For those of you who don't know what I did a minute ago, cleaning the compiler cache. The compiler cache is when GameMaker runs a game, it will create temporary resource files that it can use between runs of the game, so that it doesn't have to like go to the trouble to uh, creating the same sprite resources and stuff over and over if it doesn't have to. And sometimes that does get screwed up, and sometimes if you're getting weird errors, cleaning this out will help. It's especially a good idea to do it before you go and create application with your final game, even if you don't think you have to. Also, if you're using the Yo-Yo compiler for anything, it's a good idea to do that periodically. Anyway, what I was trying to do before and didn't actually demonstrate because I got distracted by uncalled for glitches would be I'm clicking this, I'm placing it here, I'm creating another one, and it won't let me place it too close because the indivisible sprite masks are colliding with each other, but I can place it out there. And also, if you click down, if you release over one of these guys, oops, you will be able to drag the tower around without having the mouse button pressed, which is okay. That's not like a huge influence on gameplay. It just feels a little bit unpolished, maybe. So that's another thing that I'll try to remember to give more attention at the end of this series. Anyway, I got a lot done in this video, and by got a lot done, I mean I fixed a lot of things that I probably should not have let happen in the first place in the first 4 videos that I was doing this. In the next part, I do hope to be having some actual like new progress because that would be fun. But for now, I'm going to be putting a link to this project file in the description of this video so you can download it and mess around with it yourself if you want to. If you haven't been following along or making your own version or anything, I'll try and go and, again, add some more helpful comments to the code, because that's another thing that I haven't been especially good at doing previously. So rate, comment, and subscribe, watching the stuff I have uploaded, and I will see you all later.